Welcome into the Double Switch podcast, and this is our first episode. I am your co-host, Jonathan Butler, and over here on my other side, I have Michael, and I don't know exactly how to say your last name. I believe it's Buckenroth.
It is Michael Buckenroth, yeah, and I'm the other co-host for the Double Switch podcast.
Yeah, we just brought you onto the Fake Teams team. I'm glad to have you on. I've been wanting to get back into podcasting because I haven't been able to put out as many articles as I've wanted lately. It's partly due to time schedule for me, but podcasting is something I've always enjoyed. And this is, especially with us finally having a baseball season, I'm really excited to be able to bring this to our fans, to be able to get this up off the ground once again.
Oh man, I know. Even with the 60-game season, I don't care. Like I said, I've been watching inter-squad games. It's just baseball's back, and I don't care the amount of games. I'm in full swing here.
I'm exactly the same. I've been putting on just random teams, whether it's the Nationals, whether it's my White Sox, whether it's other teams. It's nice to have it on, even if it's just watching players face their own team. The fact that we got this far is good enough for me, and I can't wait to get the 60-game sprint underway compared to the 162-game marathon that we're used to.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really fun because if you think about it, almost every game matters. I mean, there's not going to be a game where because like these games are there's so few of them that all of them matter. So it's going to be cool to see maybe even some teams that aren't usually in contention maybe have like a solid month and they're in the thick of things when it comes for playoff run. And I feel like that would be cool because you have your teams that are usually like the bottom dwellers and they don't really ever do anything, but they could catch heat one couple series here and there and be in contention. I love it.
Especially when they're facing the opposite, well, obviously NL versus AL, they get to face their same division.
Yeah.
And you're going to have, I mean, especially like we were talking about before the podcast with the East, you have the AL East and the NL East, and both are really strong. So now you have these really strong teams facing each other, and it's going to make for some really good games and some really good playoff races, like you said.
Yep, so, I can't wait.
Why don't we get into a little bit of our introduction for ourselves? Yeah. Obviously, we kind of did that a little bit. But you and I are new to each other, and we're new to our fans. So what is your history with fantasy baseball? When did you start? When did you kind of get into the game?
Yeah, so, I mean, I've been into fantasy baseball for probably, I would say, thick of things like in paid leagues and big leagues for about 10 years now. I've been in one league for 8 years, which is a high school league that a bunch of the people that I played high school baseball with, we're all in one league. That's a keeper league. And then I do a couple work leagues here and there, but I do have one solid league that I've been in for a really long time. What about you?
That's awesome. I've been doing fantasy sports in general since 2006. I started then, and I got a harsh reality with fantasy baseball because I'm a White Sox fan, born and raised, and obviously 2005 was great for me. I remember seeing stuff about fantasy sports on Yahoo back in the day. And in 2006, that was my first year. Being a White Sox homer and being what I would have been like 17 at that point, I drafted mostly White Sox players. 2006 wasn't a bad year for the team, but in fantasy sports, it's not the best strategy for all on one team, regardless.
Yeah, I do have a couple of friends that I live here in Arizona, and they're big Diamondbacks fans, so they're taking all the Diamondbacks players, and I'm like, that's not a strategy you want to do. I mean, if you want to, go ahead, because that's your prerogative on your team, but I'm a San Francisco Giants fan, and especially this year, I don't know how many I'm going to have on the roster. So I don't know. I tend to take like maybe one, but I don't know if I'll take too many this year, but we'll see. Depends on where things drop, because I still have a draft to do tomorrow, and then I have a draft on Tuesday. So We'll see. Do you have any upcoming drafts?
No, and that actually gets us into our next one of I don't play a whole lot of redraft, and part of it for me is just it's hard to find a good redraft league because halfway through the season you have people that just drop off, they go to football and their team's bad, and all of a sudden you're getting easy wins, which is fun, but at the same time it's great when you have a competitive edge for everyone. So I tend to play more in dynasty leagues. and we just finished our first-year player draft. We usually do it in the middle of the year during the All-Star break, so you get the J2 players, you get the recent draft picks, and if people want to go after the Spencer Howards, Tariq Skubals that broke out in the last year, cool. Or you can go with the young guys that are just signed. Like last year, we had Robert Poisson, you had Noelle Marte, guys like that really break out and get signed to teams, and they were early round draft picks. And same with Jason Dominguez of the New York Yankees. So that was the only draft I've had recently, but that I tend to be more of a dynasty player, and that a lot of my articles are centered more on the dynasty aspect of fantasy baseball. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I play a lot of head-to-head leagues, and I do a lot of redrafts. But like I said, I've been in the one league that for so long that everybody always tends to – we're all big football fans too, but I feel like on that side we're a little bit bigger baseball fans. So a lot of them do stay in the league regardless if they're losing or not. They might not make as many moves like free agency because they're paying attention to football, but they still plug in their lineups and play day to day. So I tend to play in a lot more head-to-head leagues.
Yeah, I'm a head-to-head. I've got one roto league, but for me, it's mostly head-to-head categories. I've never been a big fan of points, but dynasty head-to-head, that's the way I go.
Yeah, because it's really I feel like it's a little bit, especially if you're watching the game and you can see like on the stat tracker or whatever where it shows that this guy needs like one more triple to take that category, and then you see him hit it and you're like, yes, you know what I mean? Like it's a cool feeling.
It makes for more trash talk too, because of the fact that my dynasty leagues are all really close, and the fact that you get to face somebody every week has always been more preferable to myself and a lot of the league mates that I have. It's fun to be able to have that you versus this guy and be able to be that close of a matchup. Roto's great. Like I said, I have the one league, but the head-to-head is just so much more fun.
Yeah.
So
especially if you're in a league with friends and stuff, it does tend to, especially because you get to play different people. You know what I mean? It's like in the other leagues, it's a lot of you're just getting stats, and then whoever has the best stats. This one, like on Sunday, you're like, oh, I get to play you starting Monday, and you're just that whole week talking trash. Yeah, I know, I understand completely.
So why don't we get into some of the news, because baseball is less than a week away. We're looking at July 23rd or 24th, obviously, as opening day, and there's been a lot. The biggest one to me, at least recently, was Yasiel Puig not signing with the Braves due to testing positive for COVID-19. And I wanted to see him sign somewhere. I'm glad he was going to a competitor, because an outfield of Puig and Acuna and Marcell Ozuna, that itself is a lot of fun right there. That's a lot of talent with the bat and defensively. Ozuna, obviously not so much, but now he's going to remain a free agent at this point. That sucks for the Braves. They could use another outfielder. Obviously, they're going to look at the rookies of possibly a Drew Waters later in the year. Austin Riley maybe in right field. He gets his chance, but I think that's a big blow to the Braves considering what they were expecting to get out of Puig.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I do think that is a huge hit to their roster. I think they'll still be fine because they do have the guys you were talking about. But I do think Yasiel will sign with somebody. I think that somebody will still give him a chance after he obviously has the 2 negative COVID tests. But I do see him being on a roster at least by midseason. I don't. If I had to throw a guess out there,
it's tough to say, just because so many teams are going to be dealing with attrition, and
exactly
anyone could literally sign him, and it's not going to take a lot, especially on a 1-year deal.
On a 1-year deal, yeah. So I agree too, especially with players like that are getting COVID tests and then have to sit out. You know, like we said earlier, these games are mostly counting. Everyone is counting. So you're going to need, if a star outfielder sits out, and you're going to need a Puig to come in and help out your team if you're in contention. So yeah, I do see Yasiel signing with another team. I just do think that it does affect the Braves, because I do think with Puig in their outfield, that only pushes them up even more to win that division.
It does. And so the other few names that we have here, obviously Austin Meadows tested positive for COVID-19. He may not be ready for opening day, they're saying, but on the same side, Glass now, he's healthy again. He should be ready. So the Rays suffer a little bit of a hit to their offense, and Glass now being ready is great. He's currently going in the top 70 picks off the board. So in a year where these starters are going to be, they may only go 3 or 4 innings this first week or 2 weeks around. So that's great for the Rays and his fantasy owners. But Austin Meadows not being ready for opening day is a huge blow because he's a big time guy this year. If I could find him real quick.
Yeah, he's going in. I know he's going early in a lot of leagues, and especially
34.
mine. Yeah, I mean, I have Austin Meadows in 2 out of the 4 teams I have. And so I've been definitely monitoring this because he's my stud outfielder. I mean, I do think that because if I can remember correctly, he tested positive like a few days ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I know a lot of these players will test positive, and then after like a week, they'll start getting their negative tests back, so they're able to come back. But it does worry me a little that we haven't really heard too much about it.
I think it's going to open the door for Yoshi Susugo, who they signed this season. That's going to open a spot for him at least for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the Rays have always been one to play around with rosters, so I don't think it's going to kill them too much. But Meadows, obviously, I'm trying to see. I don't think he had any symptoms, but whether or not he's going to be back in time and be healthy enough to make a difference early on is tough. But at least the Rays have guys that you can always go to if you have to grab one off the waiver wire.
Yes, yeah, the Rays do have and then earlier this year, defensively, you wouldn't want to do this, but like Jose Martinez,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, defensively he's not great at all, but for a bat, that's a solid bat that they could put him in. But I mean, I don't know if you'd want to take that defensive liability because
right. Well, and the Rays have so many DHs on their team between him, G-Man Choi, you've got Hunter Renfroe, who can play a decent outfield.
Yeah.
But you've got guys that can fill a DH, and obviously the Rays already had it with the universal DH for this year, but they already had it, and they need a little bit more defense besides just Kiermaier trying to roam the whole
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you saw, but Yoan Moncada also just reported to White Sox camp, and I'm sure you've seen it because you're a White Sox fan, so that's huge for you guys.
It's huge for the White Sox themselves and myself on my home league. I've got him as my top third baseman with him and Vlad Guerrero because I tanked the first couple of years. But Yoan Moncada getting back is great. The fact that he's been able to rejoin the White Sox, nobody's going to take his spot. But if he can get healthy enough, we could see him be one of the top third basemen just like he was last year. And I want to see if he can carry what he did all last year into this year. I think he has that possibility because he's a star in the making. And him moving to third base, his defense shows. So you don't have to worry about him being taken out of games for defensive liability. And he's going to be a big part of an explosive offense for the White Sox with Encarnacion, Eloy Jimenez, Abreu, himself, even Nick Madrigal, who could play at the top of the order. And then obviously Luis Robert, who everyone is just so excited for.
Yeah.
Moncada being a part of that is going to be big for fantasy this year.
I've actually been catching my eye on a lot of the White Sox inter squad games, and like Tim Anderson's already bat flipping, cracking home runs, and Luis Robert is just, man, that guy is going to be so good, making solid plays out in the outfield. Like I honestly do think that the White Sox have a very solid chance this year. And then all Nick Madrigal does is just get hits, and get on base, and then he's going to steal. I mean, once he gets full-time job, he's going to probably be one of the top stolen base contributors in the MLB for sure.
I think one of those things we have to remember, I will on a tangent here with Madrigal, I think a lot of people are giving him a little bit more speed than he has. He's fast, but I don't expect him to be a 40 stolen base type guy. Maybe that's just me, but especially down in the minors, he had 18 last season, or no, sorry, that's okay. So last year, 17-14, he had almost 40 in the minors, but before that, he wasn't stealing a whole lot. So
Yeah.
he's going to be great, especially for runs, for average. He's going to be a guy that he does all the little things
Yes.
where
Perfectly.
the other night in the inter squad game, he went from first to second on a fly ball just to, I wouldn't even deep center. It wasn't even the warning track. And Luis Robert obviously has an arm, but he
Yeah.
still was able to tag up and move up and get into scoring position. So he's going to be fast. How much he steals, especially on a team with this much firepower, we'll have to see. But Madrigal could be exciting for this year.
He's just definitely going to have the opportunity because he's going to hit
Mhm.
330
with a 4% strikeout rate. The guy,
yeah, exactly. The guy never strikes out. But yeah, so I do see you having a happy season at least with your team, unless obviously injury strikes. I do think that they've set themselves up pretty well.
And well, yeah, and it should be exciting. Although one that kind of came out yesterday that was hit the internet really quick was Domingo Germán for the Yankees might be retiring. He fired out a cryptic tweet last night of basically, hey, if this is what my 11-year career has done for me, I'm happy with it. And there's a lot of skepticism whether he's retiring. He didn't really state anything, but he was still dealing with the 80-game suspension from the domestic violence suspension he started in 2019. He was going to be out all of this season. He wouldn't be able to play until this year's playoffs, but he's going to be 28 by the time he could pitch again. And would he even be ready for the playoffs this year? I highly doubt it. So it'd be unlikely for the Yankees to carry him. And if he's not pitching until 2021, he's going to be 28, missing a season and a half. Even though it's not due to injury, I don't know if he really has a spot. You have guys like Clark Schmidt in the Yankees, and the Yankees have a deep farm system for pitching. So if he's done, that's a huge blow, dynasty guys, to anyone that expected him to be a part of the future since he started to get into his own.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, especially with the tweet being cryptic, I don't know if he's maybe just, just disappointed with what's going on and just the whole situation. So I don't know if maybe that's what he's saying is he's going to retire, or like I said, he's just maybe not in the right headspace right now. But I do think him retiring would be a huge blow. But let's hope that he doesn't, because that he's definitely one of the fun people to watch on that Yankees staff when he does pitch.
Yeah, he's been rising. He figured out his control last year. The strikeout numbers dropped from 10.7 per nine to 9.63, but he was able to limit the walks. He was able to be a better pitcher than just a thrower. So that's a big blow to the Yankees. And we'll have to see what happens with that. We'll update you if we hear anything. So why don't we actually get into this season, though? Guys that matter, guys we love, guys we don't love. And that's kind of what we're here for this first episode, at least.
Definitely. So I wanted to see if you have a couple of your favorite early rounders, because I have a couple. So I was gonna maybe I'll throw one out, you'll throw one out, and then we'll go that way. So mine, I know everybody knows he's huge, has big years, MVP, but I still think that he might not top, obviously, because 60 games, but I think in a 60 game sample size, I think Cody Bellinger this year is going to just have a huge year. I have been watching some of the Dodgers inner squads, and I just don't feel like he's giving it his all out there right now. But once the season starts, especially going against, he starts the season off against the Giants pitching staff. And we know that that's not the greatest, especially me being a Giants fan. So I just think he's going to have a quick early start, just crushing the ball against us for sure. What about you?
Does his swing change concern you at all? Because obviously his first half last year was absolutely stellar. If I could get this to pull up for last year, first half was come on, there it is. First half. So obviously he had an ISO of 355, but his triple slash of 336, 432, and 692 with an OPS over 1.1. And then in the second half, he admitted to making some tweaks, and he dropped off 70 points in batting average. His slugging dropped, everything went off, but he said he's been tweaking it again this year, trying to find that right balance. Does that concern you at all, especially as a top 5 pick, or no?
No, not me. Like I said, they were talking about that in the inner squad that I watched, and they were saying that he did work a lot on it during the offseason and even the start of spring training when we had our first spring training. So I personally don't find it to be an issue. I could see why people maybe don't want to go so high on Bellinger, but for me personally, for my favorite early rounder, I do think that he's still going to have the same type of MVP season as he had last year in a 60 game sample size.
Absolutely. One of my guys is obviously Juan Soto. You'll learn with me, I'm a huge Juan Soto fan. I have been since before his MLB debut. I've been standing up for him for the longest time. The kid is just a monster at the plate. He has a great batter's eye, and I think especially in such a short season, he's going to be consistent throughout, and that's going to be nice because even on when he's cold, he's still going to provide you runs. He's going to provide you some RBIs. Because his ability to get on base, he's going to be a value no matter what. He's not a guy like Justin Upton or Adalberto Mondesi, who, if they're on fire, they're great and they're helping, but if they're cold, they don't provide you nothing. Soto, I think, is one of my top picks this year, as he should be every year, but simply because he should not kill you any single week, and he could win you weeks all by himself, especially facing the Orioles and the Blue Jays pitching staff because of that East versus East this year. So Soto's my guy.
Yeah. So my second guy, Trey Turner, just solid especially if you're playing in like the categories. He's a category stuffer. I just see him having, because last year he started off with the broken thumb, and that just, I think, especially with stolen bases, he didn't do as many, but I just feel this year fully healthy and playing against a lot of the lower level teams, that he's going to have just a huge season. And I feel like he's going to probably be number 1 or number 2 in stolen bases when the 60 game season's over with.
I agree with you there. And the fact that he doesn't kill you anywhere is great. Obviously, anyone in roto leagues is going to need stolen bases. He's going to be a top pick, and you don't have to try and make up time with him because of the fact he provides speed is one of his top things. He does provide some power, almost 20 home runs in a regular season every year, and he's going to be on a great offense versus guys where you're trying to find speed late in drafts. I think Turner's a great early round pick because you're in any roto league. That's a problem with going late on speed, is if your guy isn't hitting, you're going to have to try and dump him for another. And that just may not be there this year.
Yeah.
But Turner, especially behind Soto, behind obviously no Rendon hurts.
Yeah. Rendon leaving to go to the Angels did definitely hurt, but I do think that it's still going to be a solid lineup. I mean,
yeah. And there were rumors of him originally being the third, hitting in the 3-hole this year, but they did come out and say that he will be the leadoff man, which means Robles is probably down at the bottom of the order, unfortunately. But, I mean, obviously you've got Eric Thames, Howie Kendrick, Starlin Castro. You still have a solid cast around Turner who are going to drive him in and get him over. So I'm not too worried about that. My last one is actually a pitcher in Walker Buehler. In a season where, to me, the higher-end pitchers are going to be more valuable this year, it's a little bit risky, and he's going as a 16th pick right now. It's risky because if one of the top guys goes down due to COVID, due to injury, it's a huge blow to your staff. But investing in at least 1 or 2 of the top pitchers is definitely necessary because they're guys that are going to be expected to go longer early on in the season. And especially as the season goes on, they will be guys that are trusted by their managers. You're not going to have the John Lesters where, okay, 4 innings and you're done because we're just going to go to the bullpen. So Buehler is one of my favorites. He's healthy. He doesn't have that risk of, obviously Degrom had the weird flare up recently with his back. Scherzer always has an issue with his back. Verlander is 37. So you never know when he's going to kind of fall off the table. You don't expect it to be this year, but I absolutely love Buehler where he's going. I love the fact of him being a dominant pitcher and being able to face some of the teams that he's facing. I think he could end up as the number one or number 2 pitcher behind Cole. So
yeah, no, I have a lot of him in my teams for sure, because a lot of people, especially in my leagues, they're sleeping on him, and I'm like, I'll take Walker every day of the week. Like that's for sure. So now that we've said a couple of our early rounders that we really like, do you have maybe one that you just don't see why he's going so high, or you just maybe don't fully trust or like?
Yeah, and I've already mentioned him once, and that's Adalberto Mondesi. The short season, I don't feel like there's such a difference between him and a guy that you can get later that provides speed. Especially if he starts out cold, he's going to kill you in batting average. He's going to kill you in on-base percentage if you use that as a category for roto or head-to-head. And the speed's great, but I'm not fully one to just buy in. I'd rather take guys later, especially on someone that's his only category. Give me a guy like Ahmed Rosario or Danny Santana that have the speed that can give it to you in little bits. But I mean, Mondesi's always hurt. And especially in a short season, if he starts out, say, 2 for 40 or anything else, your average is going to tank, and he doesn't bring anything else. So
yeah. And if he's going 2 for 40, he's not getting stolen bases.
Right.
So,
and that's
so I completely
season,
agree.
he can kill you. What about you?
So you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, is Jacob Degrom. So I know he came out saying he had the back issues, and I just pulled up the Mets schedule for this year. And let me just tell you the first 4 series that they're going into. They open the season against Atlanta, obviously stacked lineup. Then they play Boston, another pretty solid lineup. Then they play Atlanta again, and then they play Washington. And then after Washington, they go to Philadelphia. So I just don't see, and I know that division is really well. So I just see that this is not a great schedule for them. Like, and then they're going to have to play the Yankees. It's like, I just feel like this season for them is just, they're going to be playing really tough schedules. And you already, like you said, he's already saying he has back issues. So it's like, I don't know if maybe he has like a back, like maybe second or third start, he has some back tightness, and then he goes, you know what, I'm just going to just call it, sit it out. Like, I don't know. Because like I said, I don't know if that's what he'll do, but I could just see him having issues and then maybe just saying, you know what, I'm going to maybe sit out, get rest, and try again next year. And then that would really hurt, because Degrom is going, let's see here. I have him at NFC going number 7.
Yeah, he's a high pick in NFBC pretty much the last few years, and he should be. He does have a much more brutal schedule, having to face, like you said, the Yankees. You've got the Red Sox. You've got the Rays. The Blue Jays are an up-and-coming offense. I expect them to be better. And having to play them a ton. Obviously, he does get the Orioles. He does get the Marlins. But who knows if he even pitches against them more than twice. Just because of the way the season goes. He may only pitch against the tough teams.
Exactly.
I think he's still going to be worth it, but it is definitely not a favor for his schedule-wise. It does hurt a little bit, but he's a competitor. He's a bulldog on the mound, and I could see you passing up and taking a guy with a little bit more favorable of a schedule in the next round or after that.
Yeah, no, I'm not sitting here saying that I don't think he's going to be good when he pitches. I just feel like there's just too many things that are against him that I would pass, especially at number 7. Like I would go elsewhere for sure.
especially with a lot guys like Juan Soto, Trevor Story, Jose Ramirez that are going to bring more to your team because they're
Yes.
playing every day.
Yeah.
So I could see that.
Yep.
Now, obviously, those are our top end guys that we're talking about, top of the roster that should be stars. But do you have? There's a couple of guys that I want to discuss that are good end of the roster guys that I think are great dart throws in such a short season. That I've actually got one older one and one younger one. So I'm going to start with mine in Rich Hill. He's been going as pick 181 over the last month. Originally, he was a much later than that because you're expecting him to miss half the season. But now that we're halfway through the season, as they would have viewed it, he's healthy. He's going to pitch for Minnesota, and they shouldn't really mess around with him because their bullpen isn't spectacular, but they should trust him to go at least 5 or 6 innings. He already fired off, I think, 5 1/3 the other night. So he's obviously stretched out. He's healthy. And what killed him usually was the second half of the year. He couldn't stay healthy. And in a short season, we could see Rich Hill put up a 2.5 or less ERA just because he still has that nasty curve. He's a tough out, really. He's a guy that's going to make you work at the plate. And I think especially as after 150, he's easy to invest in at that point.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's definitely a very solid player to get at the end of your roster. I might not be going as low as you are, but it's just somebody that I see having a breakout year. I know he's had one before, but I just feel like it's going to be huge this year, and that's Corey Seager. I think with that lineup, and been watching the Dodgers inter squad games. He has been raking the ball. Like he's been hitting so well against that's pitching staff, which is fairly solid. And especially opening day. Like if you had one person that I wanted to play opening day against Cueto, he destroys the ball. Let me pull up his stats against Cueto, which is going to be our opening day starter. But I was actually looking at it, and I'm just like, whoa, like he hits. Just loading up here.
Well, and I know he actually he's a big riser over this last while. I feel like a lot of people were sleeping on him early. Over the last month or so in NFBC, he's been going about pick 137.
Yeah.
And I know shortstop is obviously a very deep position that you don't have to buy in on early. But in that time, he's raised up a few spots, but he was going around pick 200 for a while. And now he's up to that 137 mark. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on a Dodgers team that's going to get to play a lot of West teams where they don't have great pitching staff, such as the Angels or obviously the Rockies, he's a good guy, and especially healthy now, could be really valuable after pick 100.
Exactly. And then so I did find it. So against Cueto, just if you wanted to plug him in opening day, he's hitting 353. He has 3 homers and 6 RBIs against Cueto.
And how many at bats?
34.
Oh my god.
So I mean, 353 against Cueto is like, and then you have like Justin Turner hitting 346. So I mean, I do expect them to hit the ball around on Cueto fairly easily on Thursday night. So who do you got for your other player that you can get a little bit later down the end of your roster?
So this one for me, it's a little bit of a homer pick, but it's also a guy for me that I've been huge on because of the fact that he didn't have the greatest year last year, and it's Dylan Cease. I've been pushing him all off season that he needs to be taken. He's a good back end of the rotation pitcher, but he has that huge upside, and he's currently going pick 268 over the last month. That's an easy free guy at the end of the draft. But the biggest issue he had last year was he was getting unnecessary cut on his fastball. And teammate Reynaldo Lopez actually helped him discover that because he never had that type of cut. He never had that movement on it. But Lopez saw it, and they were able to correct his mechanics. And if he's able to control that fastball, everything else is going to fall into place for him. He's got huge strikeout upside. And I mean, if you're looking almost close to 300, a guy that can give you 10 strikeouts per 9, that's going to be able to, he doesn't really have any restrictions on him. They're going to throw him. The White Sox need him to throw, so that way in 2021 he's ready to go with Kopech, and obviously Keuchel is going to be here, but with Kopech out for the season, Cease is locked into that rotation fairly easily. So I think Cease is going to be well worth it regardless of his almost 6 ERA last year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, especially because, like I said, you maybe even be able to get him free agency, after the draft is over for sure. Once again, though, I'm going to go a little bit. He won't be as low as end of roster, but maybe right now NFBC has him at 208, and that's the catcher for the A's, Shaun Murphy. We all know he's gonna start. He's gonna be the starting catcher on the team. That's 100%. We did kind of talk a little bit earlier before we started this, though, about it's just the unknown. You don't fully know what you're going to get from him. I know that they do have obviously a lot of faith in him because if I do remember correctly, they started him in their wild card game last year. I could be wrong, but I do think they actually put him in there and he got the start. So I do know that they have a lot of faith in him, and I have a lot of Shaun Murphy as well. So that's who I think my person is that I've been getting really late in drafts, and especially if you want to, kind of boot the catcher position a little bit and maybe not go after the big stars. But that's who I would personally take.
I like that a lot, and especially it's so hard to want to, at least for me, to invest in catcher early on just because they sit out so many games. You don't have a lot of guys that really catch the 140, 150 like Salvador Perez did back in the day. And especially a young guy like that, he has that opportunity to perform, and the league won't have time to adjust to him, which is one reason I like Luis Robert a lot this year. But on Shaun Murphy, I mean, he had 60 plate appearances in 2019 in the majors, 245 average with only 4 home runs. But especially in a short season like this, when he may face a lot of bad pitching, or he may have figured something out this offseason, and if he's got his swing down and getting the type of contact that you really want, the league won't have that time to adjust to him. He's not going to be one that's stellar for average, but he could go 270 with 10 home runs in a short season and be great at the catcher position, especially after pick 200. Shaun Murphy's a great one because a lot of people aren't looking at him as a main guy.
Yeah, there's not a lot of, like you said, there's not a lot of tape out there for him, so they don't know too much about him, and that's just somebody that I'm willing to take later on in the draft for sure.
So there's one that I've been wanting to talk about, and it's a long shot for this season. I don't know if you have a guy that's similar, but for me, one guy that I really want to see him get a chance and just get thrown into the rotation, as much as people might hate it because it's an Astro, it's Forrest Whitley. He's been one of my favorite prospects for the last few years. Obviously, he's lost 2 seasons of pitching over the last few, one with the suspension, then a couple of weird injuries in there and setbacks. But there's no Jose Urquidy yet for the Astros. He hasn't reported to camp, obviously. And the Astros losing Cole this offseason. There is a spot at the back end of that rotation where, I mean, Forrest Whitley has the arsenal. The only thing that's killed him these last few years was the control, because whatever set him out of whack really obviously made him not look up as the same prospect as he was. But he's got 5 great pitches, and when he's on, he is dominant. And I'd love to see the Astros just give him a chance, throw him out there in a season that matters, but at the same time really doesn't. Because if you have, I mean, especially a team like that has the defense, they have the offense to cover for a bad game, and they've got the bullpen. So you know what? If he only goes 3 innings but is able to at least learn, they're going to have that chance for 2021 where, okay, they know how to work with him. They have the big league coaches coaching him up all year. And it's not so much that you have to draft him, but he's a guy to keep an eye on. He's going within in the top 400 just because that ceiling is so ridiculously high that he could provide you double-digit strikeouts if he's on. And I'd love to see the Astros just put him in the 5 slot, give him a chance, and see what happens.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like he should have already had his chance, and I do agree that he should at least get it this year, and he will perform. Mine is a little bit maybe less of a long shot, but it's Dustin May. Um, Once again, been watching the inter squad games, and I watched the one that he pitches because I have a couple shares of Dustin May myself, and he looked good. And I know he's one of the top prospects in baseball, but I do think that regardless if he gets a spot in the rotation or if he's coming out of the bullpen, he's going to help. So especially because he could be considered maybe after the first few games like that spark, especially if he is coming out of the bullpen. But I personally really like him, and I just like his stuff. I just really think that he's the person that I definitely would like to have on all my rosters. I didn't get a chance to get him on every one, but he's definitely my long shot. And he might not be a complete long shot because of his status as a huge prospect, but I do think that a lot of people that might not know too much about prospects might be just sleeping on him and not really fully know him, but they'll know him by the end of, or at least mid to end of this season for sure.
The one issue I have with him is obviously the Dodgers. They love to move their guys around. I wonder if he'll even have a spot on that rotation. But
Yeah.
because currently I'm looking at Roto Champ, and there's we don't really know how the Dodgers are going to do it, especially with how much they change their rosters in and out. But they have Stripling as the 5 outside of Kershaw, Buehler, Wood, and Urias. But May is definitely a guy that if one of them goes down, he should be the first one up in that rotation.
Yeah.
Because everyone else in the bullpen really should stay there. Tony Gonsolin maybe as a guy could get that 5 spot, but he's more of a spot starter. I think they like him as a long reliever. So I love the Dustin May pick. That's excellent.
Yeah.
And he's got the high potential, especially that hair. Oh man.
Yeah. He has the big league hair.
So we've obviously had a lot of discussion with the concerns for the season of people getting sick, people getting hurt. I've got one player that, before we wrap it up, the one that I'm afraid to draft, that I think the talent's there, I think the team is there, but it's David Dahl, and he's going surprisingly high still as pick 143. He had he doesn't have a spleen anymore. He had that removed a while back, and that definitely puts him at risk, especially playing in Colorado. I don't understand why he's going so high. Obviously, the ceiling's there, but in a weird year, he makes me nervous with just maybe wanting to opt out at some point, especially if Colorado goes, say, 5-10 in their first 15 games. Maybe it's just not worth it to play the whole season for him. I don't know how many players we'll see do that, but David Dahl definitely concerns me going into the season.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's so crazy to think like you just don't know. It's like this is such a crazy season because everybody, like we talked about earlier, Austin Meadows is out for COVID. Like it's crazy. But I would say the one person that I'm concerned with the most is Didi Gregorius. He already came out and said that he is going to be wearing a face mask during every game because he already had the kidney condition. So I don't know if he'll wear the mask, but I don't know if maybe mid-season or start of the season, someone that he may be close to with Philadelphia gets sick, and then he'll just maybe sit out and try to be more safe with it because he has that condition. So I would say someone like Didi Gregorius is my player to be a little bit concerned with because of the condition that he has.
Yeah, and I think Gregorius he's one that I like, but I definitely see the worry there. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see if he's able to wear a mask. And something that I'm surprised we haven't seen more guys do on that aspect is the gaiters. Obviously, they wear them in the cold. You see them anyways, and it covers their nose, it covers their mouth. I'm surprised we don't see more guys trying to use that versus a disposable mask or something else during the season, since they actually do have them there are ones with filters. There are ones that you can actually buy right now that are team affiliated. So that's something I'm surprised we don't see more guys do. Maybe he finds that as something down the road to work better.
Yeah.
But Didi Gregorius is, especially at a deep position, it's not like you're having to pay a lot for him, but he's on a great team. So
Exactly.
Gregorius could be really good, but that concern of him already not having the best of health is definitely worrisome.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, so we talk all about this. Do you have any concerns with a full season, maybe half a season, or maybe just this week we don't even something big happens and we don't even play?
I mean, obviously there's concern for it, but I almost feel like this season is going to get played regardless, and I think MLB is going to want to push through it and say, you know what, all right, you've got guys that are hurt, and it would really take a lot for a team not to be able to field a proper team. You think about it, they've got the 60-man pools that they can pull from. It would take almost 24, 25 guys getting sick or injured to where they can't even – actually, sorry, 35 or 36 guys getting injured where they can't even field the full 26-man roster. So,
no, I agree completely. And I agree with exactly what you said with that. I think we're going to get a full season. I think with them adding the additional people on the rosters, that it's just going to be the next man up, plug and play.
Right.
So, yeah. I can't wait, though. I can't wait. Thursday night.
I know. I'm excited for it. There's a lot going on. This is just our first episode. We'll be doing starts and sits, waiver wire pickups every week when we get to it. And we'll have these out for you every Sunday night, every Monday morning, whatever it is. But we'll have a lot for you guys. And I'm glad to get this one in. So I want to thank you, Michael, for joining us and joining the Fake Team staff. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. And I appreciate you guys bringing me on. And like I said, I gonna have a lot of fun this year, and definitely gonna be a memorable year. And stay with us. We'll be bringing some great content and doing our research for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys on episode number 2 next week.
Bye.